hardly any other era captivates us as much as the era of the ancient Egyptians. The colossal pyramids, the magnificent temples, and the mystical tombs always amaze us. Although many of the buildings built by the inhabitants of the pharaohs managed to withstand the ravages of time, we are still far from having fully revealed the chapter of ancient Egypt. New artifacts are still being unearthed on a regular basis, showing us what life was really like thousands of years ago. Each archaeological find is like a small piece of the puzzle that helps us to get a little closer to decoding the overall historical picture. However, not every discovery can be placed in a plausible context right away. Accordingly, the researchers sometimes come across objects that seem mysterious, bizarre, or even frightening. In today's video, we show you the many discoveries that continue to pose great puzzles to the experts. Before we get started, be sure to hit the like button and ring the notification bell for more great videos. Also, stick around until the end to learn about one of the most disturbing Egyptian discoveries of all time. The secret of the Cheops Pyramid. With an original height of almost 147 meters, the Cheops Pyramid was the tallest structure on our globe for around 4,000 years. Although the colossal tomb has adorned the Giza Plateau for thousands of years, the inside of the pyramid probably still hides untold secrets. A few years ago, a team of experts managed to locate a previously unknown chamber in the massive structure. And this is not a small alcove that can easily be overlooked, but a hidden space at least 30 meters long. Surely you've heard of the adventurous theories that say the Egyptians received help from extraterrestrials when building the pyramids. Well, in the case of the researchers, this was actually the case. However, the galactic helpers were not slippery aliens, but tiny elementary particles, so-called muons. Unlike gamma rays or X-rays, muons are able to penetrate dense materials such as stone or concrete. Armed with the appropriate detectors, the researchers finally managed to discover a hidden chamber above the Great Gallery. What lies within this ominous room is uncertain, and we may never know. The experts were unable to discover a passageway in their muon scans that leads to this mysterious cavity. Drilling into the room is also out of the question. Such an undertaking could endanger the statics of the entire pyramid. Serapeum. It's known that the cult of the dead played a central role in the life of the ancient Egyptians. However, this overriding belief in life after death was not just limited to humans. Many animals were also mummified and buried at great expense after their death. The Serapeum of SAQQARA shows us how the worship of the Apis bulls took place. After the sacred animals died, they were embalmed and laid to rest in an underground necropolis. The coffins in which the massive bulls were buried weighed a good 80 tons. The material required for this had to be brought from Aswan, and the city was 1,000 kilometers from SAQQARA. However, the colossal bull grave also poses puzzles. Thus, some burial procedures did not agree with ancient Egyptian tradition. SEKHMET statues. When a goddess already bears the nickname the Lady of Trembling, it bodes ill. And indeed, in ancient Egypt, Sekhmet represented war, but at the same time, the lion-like figure was also the goddess of protection and healing. Archaeological discoveries show that Sekhmet was worshipped in a wide variety of cities under the reign of Amenhotep III. However, a place of worship of unimaginable proportions arose in the Mut Temple of Karnak. At the behest of the pharaoh, over 700 Sekhmet statues were erected here. But what was the background to this great devotion? Well, researchers are divided on this. Some experts believe prayers were performed in front of the imposing figures to appease the goddess. Other researchers suspect that the plague was rampant at the time, so the Egyptians sought refuge with the goddess of healing. TUTANKHAMUN. Magnificent coffins, valuable jewelry, a cruel curse. When Howard Carter finally managed to track down Tutankhamun's legendary tomb in 1922, he found a wide variety of things there. The inexplicable events that took place after the tomb was opened fuel rumors of an ancient pharaoh's curse to this day. It's said that the final resting places of the rulers were covered with dark spells to protect them from grave robbers. And indeed, many people who had entered the tomb in the Valley of the Kings were to mysteriously die a short time later. Probably the most famous victim of the pharaoh's curse was Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who financed the excavations, died a few weeks after the tomb was opened as a result of an infection. Incidentally, Tutankhamun is the only pharaoh discovered who still rests in his original tomb. Temple of Abu Simbel. During the reign of Ramses II, the Egyptian population experienced an unprecedented heyday. How this social and cultural peak was reflected becomes clear when we take a look at the stunning temples of Abu Simbel. Built in honor of Ramses II and his wife Nefertari, the stone monuments bear witness to the incomparable architecture of the inhabitants of the pharaohs. However, the buildings are no longer in their original place. In order to save them from the rising water level of Lake Nasser, the temples were demolished between 1963 and 1968 as part of a mammoth project and rebuilt on a plateau. Light bulbs from DENDERA. According to pre-astronautics, the ancient Egyptians were in regular contact with extraterrestrial intelligences. The evidence for this theory is said to be visible to this day. According to this, some strange depictions would give us a vivid insight into this secret chapter of human history. This includes the strange objects immortalized on some reliefs in the DENDERA Temple of Hathor. On it, we see objects that are actually reminiscent of oversized light bulbs. As a result, the depictions show us how the aliens brought advanced technologies to Earth. A slightly less galactic approach is based on the depiction showing the Egyptian god Harsomtus rising in the form of a serpent in the morning sky. Cheops ship. The Cheops or Khufu ship gives us a vivid insight into the death cult of the ancient Egyptians. According to the beliefs of the time, death was by no means the end. It was merely the beginning of a mystical journey that, in the best case, would lead to the attainment of the kingdom of heaven. In order for the deceased to be able to reach the afterlife, a wide variety of accessories and tools were placed in the grave. This also includes the world-famous Cheops ship, a so-called sunbark, which is one of the best preserved ships of antiquity. However, when archaeologists rediscovered the ship in 1954 in a sealed pit in Giza, it had been dismantled into all its individual parts. However, this was not a random heap of rubble. The more than 1,200 individual parts were arranged in a logical order that made it possible to later put the ancient object back together perfectly. Some traces indicate that the boat was actually used for shipping. Possibly this was done to transport the body of Cheops from Memphis to Giza. In addition, it's conceivable that the powerful pharaoh used the ship during his lifetime to head for sacred places. Particularly interesting, if the Cheops ship were launched today, it would still be fully functional. Rosetta Stone. It's July 15, 1799, when a French officer manages to recover an ancient artifact in the Nile Delta. According to one story, however, it wasn't the military commander who tracked down the landmark object, but his horse. The horse had stumbled over the structure because it was half sticking out of the ground. Whatever the case, it's clear that we owe a lot to the so-called Rosetta Stone. As part of an inscribed tablet, the find made a significant contribution to the decoding of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. This is mainly due to the fact that the text is available in 3 different versions: in hieroglyphs, in Demotic script, and in Greek. In detail, the tablet was made in such a way that it could be deciphered by the 3 population groups. The hieroglyphs were aimed at the priests, the Demotic script at the officials, and the Greek letters at the foreign rulers of the time. If you like, the Rosetta Stone served as a kind of royal homage. The texts tell of all the great deeds accomplished by Pharaoh Ptolemy V. Electromagnetic energy. A few years ago, researchers announced a real sensation. Electromagnetic energy can be generated inside and below the Cheops pyramid. In our modern everyday life, electromagnetic fields are a constant companion. It doesn't matter whether we're using our mobile phone, using the microwave, or while sunbathing. The invisible energy surrounds us practically everywhere. Using a theoretical model, the experts calculated that the electromagnetic fields can be concentrated under the ground and inside the Great Pyramid. However, it should be mentioned that this is a purely theoretical study that requires certain assumptions. This includes, among other things, that the structure does not hide any other unknown cavities and that the building material is distributed in the same way everywhere. Extraterrestrial jewelry. The fact that iron jewelry was found in an ancient Egyptian tomb doesn't sound like a sensation at first. However, the discovery is made all the more exciting when we realize that the material used was literally not from this planet. A scientific study proved that the iron in the pearls was extracted from a meteorite. In our days, iron is considered a rather practical, not particularly valuable material. In ancient Egypt, however, the metal was more valuable than gold and precious stones. For a long time, the inhabitants of the pharaohs were unable to smelt iron. The rare cases in which the material fell from heaven to earth like a gift from the gods were all the more significant. Bubastis. Forget the hilarious cat videos circling the internet these days. When it comes to the question of cat worship, no other people can match the ancient Egyptians. The city of Bubastis was considered the cult center of the goddess Bastet. Within mythology, the cat goddess was considered the daughter of the sun god Re. It should therefore come as no surprise that numerous bronze cat figures and even huge cat cemeteries have been found in the ruins of Bubastis. After their death, many cats were specially transported to Bubastis, mummified, and buried in holy graves. HATSHEPSUT. Where's the mummy of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh HATSHEPSUT? This exciting question remained unanswered for many decades before the Egyptian Minister of Education Farouk Hosni announced an absolute world sensation in 2007. According to this, a team of experts managed to identify the queen's mummy using DNA analysis and a CT scan. In detail, it was a body that was found in the Valley of the Kings in the early 20th century. The detailed investigation revealed that HATSHEPSUT probably lived to be 35 and died of cancer or complications from diabetes. In the meantime, however, the identification has been questioned again. According to this, a single tooth, which is attributed to the queen, does not fit into the gap in the mummy's upper jaw. So it is that a widespread theory once again receives new fuel. The pharaoh was allegedly murdered for political reasons, and her body was then cleared out of the way. Valley of the Golden Mummies. Unexpected things often happen. It's the year 1995 when a farmer's donkey got tangled up in a caved-in grave. A few years later, it became clear what the animal had really stumbled upon: the legendary Valley of the Golden Mummies. Located in the so-called El Bahariya Depression, this is probably one of the largest ancient Egyptian cemeteries of all. Some experts estimate that 10,000 people were buried here between the years 200 BC and 100 AD. So far, only 15 graves with 230 burials have been discovered. Above all, the wealthier residents were equipped with gilded breastplates after their death, hence the name Valley of the Golden Mummies. However, the deceased were not mummified here. The corpses were wrapped in linen cloths without embalming. The Silver Pharaoh. In 1940, the Frenchman Pierre Montet achieved an archaeological sensation in Tanis. He tracked down the untouched tomb of the ancient Egyptian king Susenes I. The ruler was in power until around the year 994 BC and was buried in a magnificent manner appropriate to his status. At that time, the researchers came across a magnificent tomb that contained not only the mummy of the pharaoh, but also the corpse of his wife Mutnejmet, two other kings, a prince, prince and a high priest were also laid to rest here. A look at his sarcophagus shows why Susenes I is also known as the Silver Pharaoh. The coffin was made of solid silver and was also richly decorated with gold. The king's death mask was again made of pure gold. While the precious grave goods were still in remarkably good condition after all this time, the ruler's mummy had already completely disintegrated by the time the tomb was opened. Secret knowledge. It's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. How did the ancient Egyptians build their mighty pyramids? Well, this question often refers to the practical implementation. The theoretical planning has always been a mystery. In particular, the alignment of the monumental buildings can hardly be surpassed in terms of precision. All 8 pyramids on the Giza Plateau deviate only minimally from the north-south alignment. At the same time, the edge links of the Cheops pyramid each correspond to 365 Egyptian cubits, and thus exactly the number of days it takes the Earth to revolve once around the Sun. Lost Golden City. If we turn back the wheel of time by around 3,400 years, we find ourselves in an epoch that still puzzles experts to this day. At that time, the pharaoh Akhenaten decided to give up his religion and the former capital in Thebes in order to found the city of Akhetaten and become the city's ruler. There, he ruled together with his wife Nefertiti and founded a mysterious sun cult. But what motives could have led the pharaoh to take such a drastic step? The answer to this riddle may be hidden in the ruins of the legendary Golden City, which were rediscovered in September 2020. In light of the astonishingly good state of preservation in which the remains of the magnificent village were found, the entire professional world went into a frenzy upon this discovery. In fact, experts have called the discovery of the city ruins the biggest sensation since the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. In detail, the Golden City was built during the reign of Akhenaten's father, Amenhotep III. That epoch describes a chapter in which ancient Egypt was in a real heyday. This was a time of extraordinary luxury, wealth, and power. Although the investigation of the site is still in full swing, researchers have already unearthed some incredible artifacts. Jewelry, amulets, ceramics, and countless everyday objects give a foreshadowing of the priceless treasures that may yet lie within the remains of the Golden City. But the buildings also give us an authentic insight into everyday life at the time. According to this, the archaeologists have already found houses that may have once been occupied by workers, a kitchen, a bakery, administration buildings, and even a burial ground with burial chambers carved directly into the rock. After Akhenaten had turned his back on the flourishing town, for whatever reason, the Golden City later seemed to have been used again by Tutankhamun at some point during history. The subsequent ruler must have valued the city, which represented the prosperity of his empire so well. In fact, some findings suggest that the town was inhabited until the 7th century AD. The city was then left to its own devices for many centuries, before it recently saw the light of day again. The Alien King. We've already introduced you to the basic idea of pre-astronautics. Some adherents of this parascience believe that the extraterrestrials were not content with merely coming to Earth regularly to be worshipped by the ancients as supernatural deities. Some of the aliens are said to have started to mix with the inhabitants of Earth over time and even have descendants. According to a controversial theory, the pharaoh Akhenaten also had extraterrestrial ancestors. The ruler was often depicted with an unusually long skull and a strangely deformed face. Researchers trying to explain the king's bizarre appearance by earthly means consider it more likely that Akhenaten suffered from a hormonal disorder. In detail, it could have been acromegaly. This chronic excess of growth hormone causes certain parts of the body to become excessively large. Giant ram's heads. The recent discovery of 3 giant ram's heads near the Temple of Karnak in Luxor showed researchers just how adept the ancients really were at the intricate creation of their objects. The oldest remains of this sacred site date back to the 12th dynasty. This era, also referred to as the Middle Kingdom, existed between the years 2137 and 1781 BC. The Karnak Temple was originally dedicated primarily to Amun-Re, who enjoyed a special position within ancient Egyptian religion as the god of the sun, wind, and fertility. However, the temple complex was to be constantly expanded and rebuilt well into the Roman Empire. The ram heads found a few months ago were very likely created by the Ptolemies. These were the members of the Macedonian Greek dynasty that ruled over Egypt and many other areas for almost 300 years. While archaeologists only came across the massive ram's heads during their excavations, the stone skulls were once part of much larger statues, which were designed to resemble the world-famous Sphinx. The huge figures once adorned a magnificent avenue, which was made up of around 700 figures and connected the Karnak Temple with the Luxor Temple complex. The experts' plans envisage carefully restoring the ram's heads and then placing them on appropriate bodies. A few days after this breathtaking find, the archaeologists had the next sensation: the discovery of a cobra statue that was probably once on one of the ram's heads. Bird of SAQQARA. It's 1898 when a strange artifact is unearthed during excavations in Saqqara. Visually, the object is reminiscent of a bird, but it has strikingly straight wings. The tail also has a very unusual shape. For this reason, there's still speculation about the true background of the SAQQARA bird. Some researchers consider it conceivable that the figure actually depicts an ancient aircraft. Over the years, various scientists have dedicated themselves to testing the structure for its ability to fly. While some replicas are said to have actually managed to fly through the air, others immediately felt the ground like a stone. Even apart from the airplane theory, it's unclear what purpose the more than 2,000-year-old object once served. The bird could have once adorned the mast of a sacred boat, been a wind vane, or functioned as a toy. What discovery from ancient Egypt amazed you the most? As always, let us know your thoughts, suggestions, and feedback on today's video in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you liked our detour into the world of the pharaohs. Also, while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to stay up to date from now on. Finally, please take a look at the other videos of our channel, which we've linked for you here in the credits. Thank you for watching. Have a great one, and see you next time.